Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are in day number 2 of Gifts Impact Week, and we are excited because we have some very special individuals on today. We're going to be talking to some of our donors and supporters of Gift this evening. So I'm Cornell Gorman again, co-founder, COO of Gift, and we also have Brandon Calloway, CEO, co-founder of the Gift organization. Really quick, Brandon, can you explain to everybody, just in case they haven't heard, what is Gives Impact Week?
Yeah. So Gifts Impact Week. Well, if you haven't heard of Gift in general, the first thing you should know is that we raise money and give grants to Black-owned businesses on the east side of Troost. And the goal is that we find these businesses that operate over there. We help them grow, create jobs for the individuals that live there. And so we are a little bit under 2 years old. Kind of can't believe that we're coming up on our 2 year anniversary. But we've been able to do a lot in 2 years, in just a little bit under 2 years. And so in this
Yep.
week, we're just telling the stories and talking about the impact that we have been able to have, and also emphasizing that we've only been able to have that impact because individuals and foundations and corporations have jumped in to help make it possible. And so today, uh, I also want to make sure that I say thank you to Geico. Geico is a sponsor of today's panel and has been a sponsor and supporter of Gift from the very beginning. So special shout out to Geico. And here today we have a lot of great individuals that have also been, great supporters of Gift and have been the a few of many people that are the driving force that allows us to do this work. And so we want to talk to a few of our magnificent donors and supporters about why they feel. Obviously, me and Cornell have a bias of why we feel like the work that we do is important. And I try not to fall into that trap of thinking like the thing that you do is the most important thing in the world. Obviously, sometimes it's hard, and so I'd love to hear from other people about why they feel the work that we're doing is important, and also wanting to know from the community, the people that we're impacting, what is it that you guys want to see from us in the future. And so with that, I want to kick it off by beginning just introductions, go around the room and talk about uh, introduce yourself, who you are, who you're with, and how you heard about Gift for the first time in general. So Drew, I'm gonna start with you.
Sure. I'm glad to be here. My name is Drew Eanes. I'm a founding board member of the Hadley Project, which we'll get into, I'm sure, moving forward, and also work at J.E. Dunn Construction, who is also a donor of the Gift. I first learned about Gift when we started our fund. Gift was actually the first organization that the Hadley Project funded, and we're up to 30 now. So it was a very significant move for us to partner with our first organization in Gift and all the wonderful things that they're doing in the community. Like one of the main reasons we wanted to partner with Gift is our fund is limited in terms of who we can give grants to. From a taxable status, we can only give grants to 501c3 nonprofits, but Gifts come up with a creative model where they are their own 501c3, but they can use the funding and grants that they get to help for-profit businesses in the community. And so it helps us expand our reach in terms of the impact we're able to make in some of these historically marginalized communities.
Cool. Yeah. And it was, I mean, obviously it was huge for us to be like a huge honor for us to be the very first recipient of a grant from the Hadley Project. So thank you, Thomas, as well. That was awesome. Uh, I want to throw it over to Thamara and introduce yourself and how you heard about
Thanks, Brenda. Hi, everyone. My name is Tamara Subramanian. I work for the Black women-owned Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Justice organization, the Winters Group. We are a global DEIJ consulting firm. I learned about Gift through the internet, through Instagram, Facebook, and social media in general. I am an individual supporter who I was born and raised in the Kansas City area, and after some time in school and work, got to move back here. And I recognized that my connection with the community wasn't as strong as I had hoped to, and didn't live up to the values that I want to live by. And also really noticed that donating to charity and building prosperity are very different things. And I wanted to do the latter. So I am a continuous supporter of G.I.F.T with my husband, who's also a huge supporter as well. And I'm excited to see what else you all do as you grow.
Cool, cool. Thank you. Definitely appreciate the support. Amy, introduce yourself,
Yeah,
please.
hi. I love what you said, Norma. That was just beautiful about how you think about the organization. I'm Amy Worley. I'm here as an individual monthly contributor to G.I.F.T, but I also happen to work for VMLYNR, and they've also contributed to G.I.F.T through their employee-funded foundation. There are a lot of individuals at the agency who are big fans, which is how I learned about G.I.F.T. One of my coworkers, Rachel Hosteller, is a big supporter and shared information about the organization on a team meeting and got several of us really excited about it. And I've been a donor ever since.
Yeah.
So shout out to Rachel.
Appreciate you. Appreciate Rachel as well. Appreciate VML overall in general too. Thomas, introduce yourself, please.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, everybody. My name's Thomas Sunderland. I'm on the board of the Hadley Project as well as the Sunderland Foundation in Kansas City. I think I first heard about G.I.F.T from a news article, actually, which is probably proof that, press does matter and getting the word out really can help a cause. And it really did coincide, as Drew mentioned, with right about the start of the Hadley Project. And as soon as we saw G.I.F.T and what you guys were doing, we knew it was a great fit for exactly, what we were trying to do and who we were trying to partner with. So it was a no-brainer, and we were super excited to make that first grant. And it's been a great partnership ever since, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Appreciate that. And then let's wrap it up with Jay. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you guys inviting us to this as well. So I'm Jay Lott. I'm with C2FO. How I first learned about G.I.F.T. I'm trying to think in particular. So we, as an organization, have been pretty intentional with what we've been trying to do here the past year, impact the community in a variety of ways. But why try to recreate the wheel? When we recognize an organization that is making headways and who have had so much success with just under 2 years, right? It's super impressive. So what our organization did was vet out a lot of people throughout the community, and we were again just really impressed with what you, Brandon, and your team have been doing. And so we were just happy to be able to contribute, and we look forward to being able to do the same, years to come.
Yep. So really quick, we got a question in the chat. Somebody asks, I'm assuming this is for you, Amy. They just want to know a little bit more about your organization. Could you go ahead and give them a rundown what it is you
Yeah,
guys do?
VMLYNR is basically you think of it as an advertising agency. It's a global marketing and advertising agency that does everything from TV commercials to mobile applications and more technical and website type work. Full service agency. We're all over the world, but our headquarters is in Kansas City, and we've been around for about 26 years. In the old downtown airport, so the former Kansas City airport, still functioning airport. You'll see our sign there. That's where the office is.
Love it. And then we also got one, Jay, interested in to know what is C2FO.
Yeah, we're a financial tech company, and so we built a platform and also have a variety of products available to help businesses thrive using working capital. Um, so we built that platform, and it allows for communication between a buyer or a supplier. And so the advantage is that suppliers of the world, so if any of you sold widgets to Amazon, you could communicate, hey, I would love to get some early payment and I'm willing to give you a nominal discount to do so. So it's a dynamic discount platform.
Yep. Love it. Love it. So after hearing about you guys, what it is you do, I'm interested to know, some of you have donated on an individual level, foundationally, corporately. What compelled you guys to want to give to the Gift organization? Let's bring it back to Drew.
Yeah, I think the Hadley Project, our model is to really make an impact on areas where dollars haven't gone from a philanthropic level historically. If you look at the history of philanthropy, and more specifically, the history of where money goes in the Kansas City community, it wasn't going and hasn't gone to a lot of these areas that we're really focused on investing in. And because of that, there's a lack of investment, there's a lack of infrastructure, and there's a lack of opportunity. And so, our model is how can we flip that on its head to use the funding that we had available to really flood that marketplace. And once we had an idea of talking to Brandon, which is another part of our model is trust-based philanthropy, and got to know his mission and goals, it was a perfect, opportunity for us to make a significant impact on our first grant that we had. And he's really done that, whether it's, hair salons, other businesses in the community, all of the drives that he put on. I believe last year was the Juneteenth week-long kind of drive that he did. He's doing great things and helping a lot of people. And, from the Hadley Project perspective, our ROI is not money-based. It's more of how many people can you impact in the community. And so the opportunity to leverage our private dollars and with a nonprofit entity, but, spend those dollars into the for-profit businesses is helping businesses a lot, keep them alive, especially with the pandemic and, how stressed a lot of these businesses have been. Gift has been able to, really help a lot of these businesses stand on their own. And so we're very happy about the progress so far with it.
Love it. Love it. Love it. What about you, Amy?
Yeah, well, I don't think you can live in Kansas City and not be aware of the hyper segregation in the city. It's almost like there's two different cities, and that's not KCK and KC but white Kansas City and black Kansas City. And I travel a lot with my job, and I knew a lot of cities don't look like that. It doesn't have to look that way. A couple of years ago, my husband and my son and I did the Dividing Lines audio tour, and I highly recommend that if people haven't done it. But it was so informative about how Kansas City was really designed to be segregated, how racist policies not only made the city hyper segregated, but unequal, with the wealth sitting on one side of the city. And I really wanted to do something to change that. And I know a lot of people probably feel this way, but it feels overwhelming. You kind of get paralyzed by how big the problem is and how can I possibly do anything to make a difference. So when I learned about Gift, I was actually just super grateful. So thank you guys for coming up with a way that I feel like I can make a really direct impact on closing the racial wealth gap in my own city. With money going directly to businesses who are impacting the community directly, and jobs in the community, and services and products in the community. So I love that you've sort of created an avenue for somebody like me to feel like this is something that makes direct impact, where I feel like it's not so huge. It's one business at a time in my own community where you can really make a difference.
Yeah. yeah. That is that's awesome. I mean, I often feel like that, this problem of the racial wealth gap is so large. So the ability to make it tangible, I think I think that more so, like, I'm not mad. There's nothing special about me, right? Like, I'm not a magic person that has gotten Gift to where it is. It's just the challenge that exists, and everybody knows about it. But so on that note, I want to ask Tamara a question about, so one other thing I should say is that we've given out over $500,000 in grant funds since we've started. 38 different businesses and uh, created 49 jobs, and we've had businesses who have seen revenue growth from 50% from their first quarter to their last quarter to 1,000% from their first quarter to their last quarter, and we get questions every now and then about why is it that we only focus on this area. And so it got me thinking about that when Amy, when you mentioned about the intentional segregation. And so I wanted to throw the question to Tamara because I know she probably has stuff to say about it and can't handle a challenging question like this. But why do you feel like that is in from the DEI social justice lens? Why do you feel like that work, that targeted work, is important?
Yeah, you mentioned that it's intentional and it is directly for only Black businesses. And I think that was one of the main reasons that I was compelled to give my money to G.I.F.T, because there's, as Drew was saying before, a lot of foundations, charities, and organizations. There's very little, almost, I think there's a lot of research out there about close to 1% to 3% or less than that of foundation money and grants are specifically allocated to communities of color, especially Black communities. Yet there's so much that's specifically going to children or specifically going to this education, for example. There's also so much out there that's specifically being allocated to, it should be going to this programming that I decide is worthy. And I think it's so incredibly important for us to recognize, if we are saying as foundation leaders, corporate workers, just community members in general, if we're saying we are supporting racial equity, it's more than just buying from a Black owned business. It's also making sure that they can actually sustain. Some of the grant work we do at the Winters Group, we started giving out a grant that's specifically to Black owned or Black run businesses. And we realized a lot of the grant proposals we saw really appreciated that we didn't have restrictions on where that money can go, because a lot of the grants are you can't put the sports personnel or all those other expenses that don't look good. They're you're paying for people's salary, but why is paying for people's salary when they're doing something good for the community a bad thing to be supporting? So yeah, I really think that the intentionality of it being for Black businesses is what is keeping this model alive and thriving. You have the numbers to see the revenue generating and community being built, and being able to sustain that. And I really hope other cities take on this model, not to copy or anything, but it's so important
to honor.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I would love to add on to that. From a personal experience, my dad is an entrepreneur. I have a lot of family members that are entrepreneurs, but him and his partner have been in business for about 20 to 25 years. It took them, two Black owners, 12 years in order to get a credit facility from a lender. So 12 years for a minority business to get credit,
Which
right?
is wild.
Which is wild, and it is. It really is. But it's what the world. It's what is common in the world today. I think we all understand that minority-owned businesses, whether it be Black, women-owned, whatever it may be, minority-owned businesses are less likely to get approved by a traditional lender for credit. And that's for multiple reasons. It's because maybe they don't want to invest in the community in which they live in. As we know, minorities don't have the credit history under traditional credit readings to get approved. And so just looking at your numbers, Brandon, from your impact report, I think was last year, I wrote it down a little bit, but 59% of the people, the applicants that you guys helped, 59% never tried. 25% were denied, 13% ignored, and only 3% awarded.
Yeah.
That's to me, that's a little bit ridiculous. But the point being there is what you were doing is very impactful. And the key word that we've all mentioned a couple of times is just strictly being intentional. and being able to be betted on by somebody, like that's what you're doing. You're taking these funds and you're betting on organizations and giving them a chance, and that is what a lot of minority owners need. So
Yeah.
I applaud your efforts and what you do, and it's super inspiring.
No, absolutely appreciate that. And with those numbers, like because you're right. Out of all of our applicants, 3% got grant or got approved for loans, and that we had 100 applicants, so that was literally 3 people. 3 people got approved for loans, which is exactly a good point. Further proof of why we do what we do. But Jay, I also wanted to kind of not to like go right back to you, but there's we our motto is that 15,000 people donated $10 a month, and that is what we survive on, right? Like we get a lot of individual support, and like Amy was saying, people recognize there's this large gap, and now we created something tangible. And especially in our first year, we did not get a lot of corporate support. We got some corporate support, but our largest bucket was still in individuals. But this in fiscal year two, no secret in saying it. C2FO is our largest corporate supporter by far. And you guys chose us along with 2 other organizations in like around Juneteenth uh, to make substantial donations in. And so I'm just curious as to um I guess why as a corporation you felt why as a corporation C2FO felt like it had a duty or wanted to take action, and then what do you say to other corporations that maybe a little bit more hesitant? I'm not saying tell other corporations give us money, just in general, like when it comes to uh corporations taking actions and taking risk on new nonprofits.
Yeah. So I'm gonna try to answer all that.
Yeah, I
Uh,
know. I gave you. I did.
no, I got you. I got you. So I think first it starts off with having a leader that is bought in and believes in the mission that you all are doing, and just uh, believes in the power of diversity in thought as well. So shout out to our CEO Sandy for doing that, but also empowering a group of individuals who put together a committee um, that were passionate about vetting out different organizations and selecting, like being very intentional in selecting who's making the impact. What I think we'll see with corporations as time goes on is you also need a change in leadership and what it kind of looks like. Because when you have a change in leadership, that's where that diversity in thought comes. And when you have people that look like the community, that's when you can kind of almost naturally uh, begin building inclusive environments internally within your own organization that then allows for those type of people to say, listen, I feel comfortable enough to actually speak up, speak my mind, and think about the things that we want to do, not only as individuals but as a corporation, to give back to the community, to help people who are really into this, boots on the ground 24/7. Like that's where everybody should want to get to eventually one day. But I do think that within corporations and leadership teams, like you have to have representation up there, and that naturally flows down and allows for them to, again, make those type of donations and impact the community in ways that the people actually want to do it.
Yeah.
I hope that made sense. I hope that I answered all
No,
that
I did.
question.
Definitely. And I know, Neil, I'm sorry. I know I'm probably jumping
You
all
doing it, man. Go ahead, brother. You're doing
uh,
great.
but like in that same note, I want to throw kind of similar question to Thomas about like the Hadley project. The Hadley project is new, and Thomas and Drew, you can hop in this if you want. But the Hadley project is new, and it's different, and it's what I would say my hope for what a lot of philanthropy starts to go towards. And so I guess the question is, what do you feel like? What do you feel like the role philanthropy has played in increasing racial equity, and what do you feel like the role that philanthropy should play in the future and ongoing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think coming into this from the very start, a major priority for the Hadley Project was trying to democratize philanthropy, right? Like we know that philanthropy has happened like in these closed off boardrooms, wealthy people for many, many years. And so when we talk about like equity in philanthropy and things like that, I think it's important, first of all, where the dollars are going. But the part that gets talked about less that we think is really important is who gets to be sharing in the decision making, right? Like who's at the table to make those decisions about where the dollars go. And I think getting back to kind of what was so attractive about Gift and what's so compelling about what you're doing is that it is Black led and Black serving. And so we knew that if we made a gift to a grant to Gift, that it would be, you know, passed along to these businesses in a very careful, intelligent, intentional way, and with a deeper understanding of the community than maybe we had. And I think that that's something that all philanthropists, I think there's beginning to be an awakening in the philanthropy industry around this, but that for a long time it's been basically people that are pretty disconnected from the issues coming at it and saying, this is what I want to see. And we see, hopefully, the Hadley Project can be the start of kind of something that's happening in other cities as well, but the beginning of a movement of saying, you know, instead of coming around and saying, here's what we want to see, start asking questions and say, what, you know, do communities need? You tell us, and then we can try and facilitate, you know, the things that are already happening there. And so that's what I hope to see more of in the philanthropy industry just generally. But I do see, I think it's encouraging that I think some of that is happening, but it certainly needs to be happening a lot more.
Yeah, just to add on to that, it's answering a question from a few minutes ago. I forget what the question was, but I remember the answer. And we think that the people closest to the problem are the people closest to the solutions of it. It's not Thomas or I. It's people that are in those communities, working with those organizations and those people to understand what they need. And so, you know, it's less about us. We act as more of a facilitator, but our job is to build relationships, just like in anything, whether it's people of color, work, family, it doesn't matter. If you build relationships with people, you're going to get a better outcome of it. And so we really want to go in these communities, know who those leaders are, build those relationships, and give unrestricted grants to help them solve the problems that with those communities. And we're going to get out of the way.
Absolutely.
Cool. Amy, Thamara, anything to add to that about what corporations or foundations, what role corporations or foundations play in, you know, taking action on racial equity?
I mean, I think they have one of the biggest roles. They have the most money. I mean, that it's short and simple. They have the most money and a lot of power. And as Jay was saying before, that leadership buy-in and commitment, and being able to be a movement maker in your organization and saying, hey, so many organizations out there have taken this huge like racial justice, racial equity stance, or they're like, we are anti-racist, or, you know, so many things have been said, but actually living out those values, we've been noticing in my work and just like looking around, a lot of companies, corporations are struggling to actualize that and what that looks like. And I see being a partner with Gift as being a great way to actualize that, actually fueling your money and resources to people who know what to do with it, instead of those at the higher levels of power in this world and corporations dictating or perhaps even having a say in where that money should go. Because it's been decades of people, even in the nonprofit industry, deciding where they want money to go instead of the people who are actually giving or getting that money, deciding where it goes. And I think that's so important and incredibly important for organizations, especially if they say they're going to support racial equity, to actually do. If you're not going to support it, like, just don't say anything. I mean, that's my thing. I'm just like, you got to live up to it if you're going to say that. And I see G.I.F.T as a great way for organizations in the city as well as organizations all across the country to support, because this model of segregation in Kansas City is not just Kansas City, it's everywhere. Redlining is so real and still exists everywhere in large metropolitan areas. And yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. I don't know, Amy, do you have anything else?
Totally. I mean, I'm here as an individual donor, but in my job, I consult with businesses all over the world on a regular basis. And that's one thing that we tell them all the time. All the research shows it. Young consumers today, you have to put your money where your mouth is. If you are out there, tweeting your support for a movement, but you are not showing that through your actions as a corporation, both in who you hire, who you put in leadership positions, and where you put your money to action in the world, then they will burn you. You are better off just being quiet and hiding away. But they want, young people want brands to take a stand for something in the world and really take action in the things that are important to them. And they're looking for that. So I think it's so important for businesses to put their money where their mouth is. And like you said, Tamara, they're the ones that have the most money, so they can make a big impact. And consumers are looking for that from them.
Yeah, absolutely. I thinking of one of like combining something that Drew said and what Jay said, like people closer to the problems are closer to the solutions, and then Jay talked about how it needed a leader who actually empowers this committee to have decision making power. And so I feel like since 2020, the large racial reckoning, there have been a lot of discussions led by people who are not people of color, and when it comes to the time to actually put their money where their mouth is, or take some action, the lack of willingness to give up authority and power, real power, when it comes to making a decision, is why we've gotten a lot of lip service, right? Rather than let a lot of people following up on that. And so I paused because I was debating on asking, have you guys seen that? But also, like, don't really want to call anybody out, because I have seen it with a few different corporations. And so just curious if you guys have had that same experience without actually calling out any corporations.
Yeah, I'll say, I'm not calling anybody out, but the opposite of that, just the relationship that, I have with the Sunderland family and the Sunderland Foundation, and the benefit of a white kid and a black kid being good friends since they were little. Because I don't think the Hadley Project would be what it is had Thomas and I not grown up together and understood a lot of the issues that we face, in my perspective and his perspective and his family's perspective, in terms of, to your point, Brandon, a lot of people in a position of power don't want to give up that power. But I think Thomas, his siblings, and his family as a whole have really realized the importance of not giving up power per se, but being open-minded and listening to other people and creating new solutions through that. I think, that's one of the most fun things for me personally from the Hadley Project is, I get to work with a friend of mine since I was 8 years old, and we're really making an impact on racial, social, and environmental justice simply because we've appreciated different perspectives over that time and been open-minded enough to do something about it. So That's just my perspective from, I guess, the private side of things.
Yeah.
I think building on, what Drew's saying and getting to what you were saying, Brandon, you see the way that even like large philanthropic organizations, they try to maintain that control through all these conditions that they put on grants. And Tamara mentioned this earlier, but really, like, part of, I think, what we need to see in philanthropy is giving those unrestricted funds and trusting. And Drew mentioned it earlier. What we try and do, we call it trust-based philanthropy, and that's a phrase that gets used a lot. You can look it up. It's out there, and we do our own version of it. But that element of trust, to say that, if you are going to make a grant to an organization, that's their money, and it's no longer your position to tell them how they can spend it, or what they can use it for. And I think that that's a part that comes along with just relinquishing that control, and it needs to be happening more.
Yeah, I'll echo what both of you said, more so on the private side, and Drew, and just growing up in a predominantly white area in Johnson County. We've had to navigate these conversations all of our life. So when it comes to what did you call it, Brandon? The racial awakening in 2020? Is that
the racial reckoning? Yeah, the 2020 racial reckoning.
Yeah. So there's a lot of times where minorities just don't simply want to have those conversations too, because it's something that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. But like I said, growing up in this type of environment and having to navigate those things, those are conversations that sometimes you just have to have, because the opposite, if you don't have those, then the same thing is going to continue to occur. Like Tamara said, the people with the wealth are going to be able to control what you're doing. And so what we have to make sure that we're doing is having those conversations, because there's a lot of people out there that do have empathy. They just don't sometimes understand what it is, the struggle or the unfairness or the inequity, I should say, the inequity of it all. So having those small conversations, you never know how close you are to impacting an individual and making them understand and widening their lens. It's as simple as, I saw a cartoon drawing. I don't know if it was in the paper or wherever it may be, but it focused on inequity. So if you guys can envision this, there's 3 people in an outfield at a baseball game looking into the field over the fence. And there's 3 boxes, and there's 3 individuals, right? So one individual was tall, would be able to see over the fence line without the box. Another person was shorter, couldn't see the field without the box. And the last person was the shortest person on the box, still can't see the field. So what that taller individual ended up doing, standing on the feet so that they could see in the field already, because they didn't need that help. So when people understand something as small as that, being able to effectively communicate is where you make the impact and make the difference, and start allowing people to, again, widen their lens. Yeah. So those are the type of people that you want to be patient with and help, because those are the individuals that want to help as well. They just need to see the vision as well.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And it takes it takes people like us, people like everybody here, to bring people along and help them make those decisions. And so I do want to get to obviously, Cornell and I will always feel like what we're doing is great, right? But we definitely recognize that the people that we are most that we're most accountable to are our grant recipients and our donors, like the individual community that allows us to be able to do what we do. And so I'm curious, we throughout the numbers a little bit earlier, we've given out a bunch of grants. We now have a monthly pop-up. What do you guys hope to see from G.I.F.T in the future? And I'll start with Amy.
I mean, I love the kind of information that you shared out earlier, knowing what is happening with these businesses, how are they growing, people that they've hired, how the community has changed because that business is there, seeing the impact that, that comes from that. So it starts with the business, but that's because we know those businesses will make an impact around them and their community, and being able to see the flow of that change happening all around them. More information like that. I love to see what's happening with them.
Yeah. Tamara?
I mean, I would just like to see you all keep doing what you're doing, and just strengthening what you all are doing. It would be awesome to see more. I wouldn't say it's on the organization to have to necessarily spread out the message to the greater Kansas City area, but I would love to see more involvement from neighboring communities in Kansas City, not just the east side, not in terms of who's getting the grants, but who's providing the money. Being able to, like in an ideal world, if everyone across Kansas City in any neighborhood knew about GIFT and could advocate for the reason why they choose to, or their company chooses to, give their money to them, it'd be so valuable to just develop greater understanding and connections. As Jay said, there's so many people with perhaps good intent who may not really understand why that intentionality of donation and how gift works is important. And because there's so much color blindness, which is a whole other topic for another time, but a lot of people don't understand, like, oh, why is it only for Black-owned businesses? Like, why is it only this side of town? But once people really understand that, I think they'll truly see, like, why what you all are doing is very revolutionary. And I think there's a comment as well that someone
tying
just
that
shared.
back to what Jay said and that analogy about equity. If you look at that cartoon, it's like some people were born tall and some people were born short. But in this situation, people weren't born short. Like we made them short. And so now like giving them that step, you have to be intentional about that, because it wasn't just an accident in the first place. It was by design that some people can't see over the fence line. And so now, you have to put as much effort into undoing it as there was into making it that way.
Yeah.
That was good. That was good, Amy.
I think this is something that I know GIFT is already doing, but I think it's really important, and that is kind of the business related wraparound services, that I know you're working with. That's something that was originally a goal of the Hadley Project as well, and that part is hard. We still are trying to kind of work our way through that, but in some ways, like making the grant is like the easy part. Like you cut the check and it's out the door. It's really making sure that the businesses have the accounting support, the marketing, the branding, the legal, all those other things that businesses really need to thrive. And those are the parts that are ongoing. It's a continuous, like long-term relationship with businesses to make sure that they have those resources and they're connected to the various networks that they need. So I think that that's really important, and I love that you guys already are doing that. But I'd love to see that continue as well.
Yeah. We actually, so real quick, we have our panel of our technical assistance partners tomorrow. So we'll be talking to the Hush Blackwell and Soda Pop Graphics and OCD Financial and all of them tomorrow. So
awesome.
Tune in for that. Go ahead, Drew.
I think with me, it's just continuous collaboration. If there's one thing that I've seen over the last, almost year and a half, it's that there are a lot of brilliant people in this city that have a lot of great ideas. And, we touched on this earlier, but, we've talked about the private side and then the corporate side of things. And I guess an example of what I mean by collaboration is, last summer, the Hadley Project threw a happy hour with all of the grantees up to that point with no agenda. It was one for us to say thank you and, hope that good ideas would come out of good people getting together. And it did. From the top of my head, that happy hour provided connections. A lot of my J.E. Dunn colleagues were able to attend that. I know, Brandon, we're sponsoring an event you guys are putting on shortly, Giving Hope and Help, another organization that we're funded with, was met through there. Swag Inc., who's focused on recidivism and reducing incarceration and opportunities. They were all at that happy hour. And now J.E. Dunn is partnered with all three of those organizations in some sort of way, right? So this is a perfect example of bringing the private side and the corporate side together in the community, creating more awareness about the opportunities that are there in the community. And, you know, the corporate side is going to be slower just because, you know, there are a lot of different issues which will take too long to get into, but it's going to take a slower time. But if we can continue to create awareness about the people and the opportunities and the work that they're doing in the community, you know, that progress will continue. So
Yeah, yeah, that's what's up. That's what's up. Um, and so I know we're getting close on time. We want to wrap it up. And so my last question, to everybody, and um, I always had a habit of getting long, like going on a rant and then asking the question. And so our motto is if 15,000 people donated $10 a month, and you know we're here doing this whole Impact Week. So it's an Impact Week fundraiser, and we don't have a dollar goal in our fundraiser. Our goal is that we get closer to that 15,000 per person number, right? We know that we have somewhere over 2,500 individual donors, and we want to you specifically this week we want to tick closer and closer and closer to that 15,000 person number, because if 15,000 people actually did donate $10 a month, we would be able to create 100 jobs a year. We would there's a lot, a whole lot of good we would be able to do in taking a large step in closing the racial wealth gap. And so I want to wrap up by asking, you know, what message do you guys have to anybody out there that is thinking about donating, or thinking about supporting, or just anybody out there just now learning about G.I.F.T? Oh yeah, Amy.
I'll reiterate what I said earlier too, which is thank you for creating a way for an individual like me or anyone out there to make such a direct impact, and to know that there's something you can do that goes straight to businesses, straight to change. So if you are feeling like you want to do something and you're overwhelmed by how big the problem is, or you feel like you just don't know how to make a difference, this is a great way to turn it into action. And like you said, such a small amount, even $10 a month, you can be having an impact on your community, and you'll see the result of that in your own life and your own community every day. And also want to reiterate that like this racial wealth gap happened by design. It took concerted effort and action and policies to make things this way. It will take concerted action and effort and policy to undo it. And you can be part of that. And you guys are helping us, you know, be part of that, and making it really accessible to make change. So it seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah,
That's exactly how I feel too, Amy. We created, whether it was we indirectly, we as people, our ancestors, whoever, people with privilege and economic privilege in this country, aka mostly white people, have created this system where it did cut off the legs, and that analogy that Jay shared with the fence, of Black and brown people to actually grow and thrive. So when I think of G.I.F.T, I think of actually creating prosperity for a community. Oftentimes in donating to charity, we get this, I like to shift away from that language just because it feels so like still creating this power complex of people who donate and people who receive. But I see G.I.F.T as something completely different. Is something that's creating resource sharing and wealth across the community, more of a collective and less of a here's money that I'm still in control of. And it requires that risk, but that risk is so worth it. And also something that we as community members of the city, it's our duty to share and spread and reduce the racial wealth gap, because as Amy said, it didn't just come out of the blue. It was all calculated and created. And even if we weren't even, I doubt I was really born for a lot of these policies that are in place right now. but it's still our duty to shift and disrupt those policies for the future.
Right. Because if we don't, then we will. Jay.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would echo exactly what you all just said there. But it's all about uplifting and elevating people at the end of the day. I mean, uh, and the more that we do that as humans, as a community, the better off we all will be in the long run, right? That's how you close it. It's just simply being a good human being, and if that's something that you want to do, if you are very passionate about learning about the inequalities and making a difference, like Damara just said, like Gift is an excellent organization that will do that, and there's people that are already involved in Gift as well, so it's not just Brandon, it's a lot of people that are doing this. So I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you inviting us on this call. And I'm thankful that organizations like us see the power in providing resources to people, especially minorities.
Absolutely. Thomas.
Yeah, I think, it's far beyond time that we all band together and try and figure this out, because it's essential for the good of the entire community and the entire city and everything that we have an equitable place to live. And I think really, the differentiation between equity and then getting towards equality is really important, because as the example that Jay brought up just with that simple cartoon, like, we have a responsibility to right these wrongs from the past. And even though none of us here were directly responsible for that situation, we're all collectively responsible to fix it. And so that does mean being intentional, like we've all said, in putting equity first, and really putting it at the front of everything that we do, regardless of what industry that we're in. I think in particular, I'm always curious about certain industries, specifically the banking industry and kind of just generally housing, which when you look at the historical context of kind of how we got here, with redlining and racially restrictive covenants in those industries, you know, I think those industries, they have a lot to do to make up for the situation as well. And of course, I don't want to call out anybody specifically, but I think there are creative solutions available in those areas. Some of it is just going to be us putting our heads together and seeing what kind of ideas we can find, and not being afraid to experiment, because if we don't try things that are new and different, groundbreaking, then we're not going to get anywhere. So we have to have the courage to experiment and really just to come together as a community on this. And I look forward to that happening.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Drew.
Yeah, I think all four of the other panelists have hit on it a little bit, but as Jay said, it's about uplifting each other in our community, and as Thomas said, it's far past time that we band together as one community. I think something that irritates me when I think about it every now and then, but I know Jay and a lot of other people that didn't grow up in communities that look like them can relate to, is that question of, well, why can't they help their own communities, right? And that saying is just stupid, and that's somebody who doesn't really understand history and the impact of redlining and disinvestment in certain communities. What's better for the east side of Kansas City is good for Johnson County, Kansas, right? What's good for Wyandotte County is good for Liberty, Blue Springs, right? We're one community, and what we're trying to do is change that notion of we're 5 or 6 different communities, because we're not. If we can create jobs in the east side, then that's good for everybody. If we can create economic impact in the east side, that's good for everybody. And so, I guess my notion is, if you're interested in making a difference, then understand why things are the way that they are, and take the initiative to do something about it, whether that's a small impact or big impact. Small impact, can make a big difference.
Yeah. Well said, man. Well said. Well said, everybody. It's crazy to think the amount of leeway we've been able to make in under these in these just under 2 years. When Chris Cornell and I were just sitting around talking about it, uh, no idea that it would get to really get to this point, and most importantly, be able to really have the impact on the number of people we've been able to touch in a short amount of time. And so all of that to say, you know, anytime I talk about impact, the thing I always want to go back to is that we're not able to make that impact without individuals, without people coming together and doing, you know, my $10 by itself doesn't go far, but when we all put it together, it's able to create, you know, 49 jobs. So uh Neil, you got anything you want to say as we wrap this up?
Yeah. First, I want to thank everybody for taking the time to come out and speak on the panel today. Everybody for logging on. This is our Impact Week, so we do encourage you guys to go ahead and donate. That link is in the bio there, or you can go ahead and visit the webpage kansascitygift.org. If you haven't signed up to be a monthly donor, please don't discount what $10 can actually do. You could definitely be part of the change and the impact that's happening here in Kansas City. Um, Also, we want to invite you guys out tomorrow to Jay Rieger. We're going to have a mixer with our donors and communities. Some of the guys on the panel today. So come out 3 to 6 if you're available. We love to see you. So that's all I got, Pete.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that is it. That's all we have. We were trying to, you know, keep it a little bit shorter than an hour, but we got into some really great conversation, and you know, time just flew. So I appreciate everybody on the panel for just one coming out today and being part of this, and to the general support of Gift overall. So thank you, and thank everybody that tuned in to watch this, and tune in tomorrow for our panel with our technical assistance providers, where we'll be talking to them about the actual work that they do with the businesses. So appreciate you guys. Thank you.